Welcome to today's session, and this morning I would like to bring to your attention, honorable members and participants, that we are going to change to reorganize just a little bit. We want to set the mood of the day by starting with session 7. Session 7 is on key legislative business and priorities for the 4th session. That will take a very short time. I don't think we will take more than 15 minutes on this session, and that is going to set a stage for the day. My name is not Lelekwe, as you have seen in the program. I am Margaret Kamar, and I will serve as session chair of both this and the session that is supposed to be the 4th session, the 4th topic for the day soon after this. I want to thank all of you for being here. We are just starting at exactly 9 o'clock, which is good. The objective of this session, honorable members, is to get some perspective for the leadership from the leadership of the Senate on the deliberations so far and their view on the priority areas for the 4th session. The sessions that took place yesterday were very interesting. They are inward looking, and it is good for us to get those comments from those comments from the leadership of the House. Actually, I see Mr. Lelekwe is here. Honorable Lelekwe, please come forward. Okay. I'll be the Senate Majority Whip Deputy for a short time. The presentation for the key legislative business and priorities for the 4th session will be presented by the Leader of Majority, the Senator Aaron Cheruiyot, who is also the Senator of Kericho. And we are also expecting Senator Justice Matsayo to rein in and bring comments that will touch on what we have covered and give us a few areas of priority to this in this session. So with those remarks, may I therefore invite the Honorable Senator Aaron Cheruiyot to come forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Well, good morning, everyone. Right Honorable Speaker, colleagues, and all the people that have showed up for day 2 of the conference. It's good to be here. Day 2 looks like day 2. This is how day 2 looks like in conferences. So we'll proceed nonetheless. I have a very simple task, which is to present to you the legislative business ahead of us in this 4th session of the 4th Senate, in the next, beginning actually in the next few days, and just to help you appreciate the work that is ahead of us and the focus that is expected from each of us. I'll do a very small presentation, perhaps like 3 to 5 minutes. If there are any questions, I'll just take them briefly. We've been granted 15 minutes. One of which I've already consumed. So let me be quick to conclude on the rest in the next 10 or less, even so that we save on time, because we had anticipated to begin this session at 8, but it was apparent that it was fairly ambitious of us, and we didn't achieve that. So it's a great honor to join all of you, the Senate family, and our guests that have joined us this morning, to evaluate and renew our commitments to serving the people of this great nation through our legislative role and oversight. Without a doubt, your dedication over the past 3 sessions have driven significant progress. Together we have passed extremely important bills and exercised rigorous oversight through our committees and upheld constitutional accountability through impeachment motions that we have passed through Of course, the most talked about being that of a higher official than all the other 3 Senates have ever handled. This was the first time that we undertook such an assignment, and I think the Senate gave a good account of itself in terms of its processes and enriching the conversation. I'm sure, I know there are conversations going on in the courts whether this or that procedure was followed, but they'll draw a lot of lessons and improve, and that will be our contribution to that process. We cannot afford to rest. We are midway through the term, and there's still a lot of work that we need to do. The theme of this retreat, which is shaping the Senate's legacy, underscores our duty to build a governance framework that will serve future generations. We said yesterday in my opening remarks that it is my utmost call to all of us that we have the dedication of patriots that dreamt about devolution and paid, some of them including with their lives, the highest price to ensure that Kenyans enjoy the fruits of devolution, arguably the best gift that this country has ever bequeathed itself since independence. We, as a custodians of devolution, must prioritize financial stability, because the long and short of all these conversations, everything that we'll say here is, do we have the resources to do that which you want to do? Remember the conversation we had here yesterday about us as a house and the things that we hope to achieve and why our performance is inhibited. And we could go north, south, east, west, but it all boils down to finances and resources. Do we have the resources? Therefore, we must still continue to speak on the need to ensure that our counties are financially stable, that the resources or the shareable revenue is, number 1, adequate, number 2, predictable, number 3, timely, to ensure that they are able to fulfill their mandate. Those 3 key issues are conversations that we've had over the years in the last 3 terms of the devolution cycle in Kenya. I don't think there's anything that county governments have requested of us as a Senate than to give them that priority, to make sure that 1, it is enough, 2, it is predictable, 3, it comes at the right time, because a dime today is not similar to a coin tomorrow. So our priorities remain to push for a comprehensive review of the PFM framework to eliminate disbursement delays and promote efficiencies. When we had our earlier meeting last year, I think with the Council of Governors, we had proposed that if this state of lack of adequate predictability to our county governments was to persist, then we may perhaps propose something akin to a devolution bond, so that the national government has a spare pool of resources from which counties can draw from, and as national government continues to collect revenue, it fills it up. However, I'm made to understand, I don't see representation from Treasury. Perhaps we didn't think about it deeply, but I've been following the statements from the Cabinet Secretary, and the Controller of Budget is here. Maybe she'll later confirm in her presentation that now more than ever counties get their resources, actually, or their shareable revenue. Those days of waiting for 3 to 4 months are long gone, and many of them, the last statement I saw from CS Mbadi was that they had been resourced up to December, which is a fairly better situation than what previously used to obtain. In another regard, we have the recommendation of CRA, who are coming up next here to present to us the 4th basis of revenue sharing, which will be extremely critical. You cannot be a senator and not understand the basis upon which Kenya shares resources. If there is a presentation that we need to pay keen attention, and in fact the reason why I'm hurrying my own presentation is so that we get sufficient time early in the morning when we are still fresh and energetic to listen to this presentation on the 4th basis. I don't know if there will be another more solemn duty that we will undertake in our time as a Senate, and this I say drawing from my experiences in the past on all the other the 2nd and the third generation formula, which I had the opportunity to participate in their making, then serving as a member either of Budget and Finance Committee or even just as a senator, because this is work that we must do. And I want to listen to the reasoning of CRA to convince us on the matrices that they have used this time. It will be quite interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. Equally important, we have legislative oversight of transferring functions. We had an extremely important discussion here on costing of functions. I don't see Senator Abbas here, but I know there are a number of members of a devolution committee, including Catherine, and I know how passionate you are about this issue. I really wish you could lead the House in conclusion of this process. It has taken too long, and we cannot continue to be innocent bystanders, just pointing, accusing fingers at others. Oh, COG needs to do this, national government needs to do this, ICGRC, or that very difficult name that I sometimes miss, they need to do this or the other. I think our devolution committee needs to take lead and do this, do justice to this exercise. We've talked about it for far too long. And in the presentations yesterday, Governor Sang actually made a very solid point that in the same way, and control of budget is here, and I don't want to preempt debate, that they were able to identify at control of budget level and say funding of bursaries from county government is an overreach on their part, that it is equally possible to establish where the overreach on the executive side is by them funding functions that are county government led, and we should be able to transfer those resources to county governments if that situation is to obtain. I think the long and short of what he said is that we can let off the bursary if Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Health, and all these other departments that continue to hold on key resources that should otherwise be run by county governments are willing to let go, and everybody will be happy. So members of devolution committee, if you happen to remain in that committee, and I don't want to preempt debate also in that space, please do justice to the country. Finally, we have a collaboration and consultation that we have to undertake with the National Assembly, CRA, county assemblies. I'm extremely proud of the work that we have done the last few days, granting financial autonomy to our county assemblies. It's the one thing that I remain extremely proud about. We continue to undermine the authority of our county assemblies by asking them to walk across the street with a begging bowl to the executive and make a request to fund their own programs. And the bill that we passed in the last few days of the last session is extremely important. I'll be calling upon my colleague, the leader of the majority in the National Assembly, and I've spoken to him and their clerk as well, to prioritize this because it means a lot to us as a devolution family. We have legislative summit coming up in the next few weeks, I'm informed. And like I said in my moving that bill, it's one of the resolutions that we passed in 2016 during the inaugural legislative summit. It's almost 10 years now. We have not been able to do it. I don't think it reflects very good on us. So my hope is that by the time we retreat for legislative summit, we will have signed that extremely important piece of legislation that fosters devolution, especially with regards to the legislative arm of devolution. I hope our colleagues that will serve in the oversight committees when we eventually, and I'm quite intentional in my choice of words, when we reconstitute them, will carry out their duty with more zeal, as has been the last few years, and perhaps even do many things that previous committees have not been able to achieve, especially establishing the place. You have this Meru matter, for example, a discussion that has we have engaged ourselves the last few days on very strong debates from both the protagonist and antagonist on this topic, on the place of the elected senator of a county in the oversight responsibilities of that county. Apart from just being invited to CPIC and CPIC, it is my feeling as a senator that I should have more say on eventual findings of the committee, apart from just appearing and trading the kind of things that we trade with the governors when they appear before oversight committees. There's more that elected senators from that particular county should be able to do, especially in informing the final recommendations, because they know that county particularly better. You know for a fact, and you know Kenyans are Kenyans, and people who serve in our county governments, they're just as much Kenyans as the rest of all of us. And you know the ingenuity of our people. In the first days of devolution, I remember part of the very even basic audit queries that will arise out of our counties is where county government will claim to have built a road from village A to B, then put the expenditure there. Then because many of these auditors, they do their audit out of the county headquarters, further down the list, you'll find the same road but with a different name. It will only take a resident senator who knows his county to point out and say, wait a minute, but this road that you have named B to A is actually the same road up there that you call it A to B. That's just an example of the many things and the project reports that we receive. Oh, this project is at 98%. It will only take you, Senator Wambua, to point out and say, no, wait a minute, I know this village. This project has not even kicked off. So the place of the elected senator in the reports that come out of our oversight committees is a conversation that we must have as a house and see how we infuse their colleagues. I thank you and appreciate the work that we have done. I look forward to an interesting session as we resume in the fourth session. God bless you. Thank you. I can resume my seat. I sit here for...
Just in case of... thank you very much, Majority Leader. Minority Leader, any comments? If not, I'll invite the Minority Whip, Senator Wambua, if there is any comment. If there is none, yeah, if there is none, it is you who has said it. Yeah.
Dr. Alale is asking whether I'm coming here to say something because I have something to say, or it is because I've been asked to say. My response to him is that there is always something to say. So thank you very much, Senator Cheruiyot, for that brief and concise presentation. I think on behalf of the minority side, which actually should carry out real and proper oversight on both levels of government, I would just want to make one point in supporting what you have said. If indeed it is a finding of the control of budget that county governments are not supposed to issue bursaries because education is not a devolved function, then the easiest thing for that office to do is to also find that there are so many functions that the national government is undertaking which belong to the devolved units of government. And in the same words, then issue an advisory to the national government that they should stop undertaking those functions. Because for devolution to work, I think one of the things that we really have to do, and this again goes to the devolution committee, one of the things that we really have to do in this Senate, if it was possible, is to settle that matter of costing devolved functions and making sure that every aspect of devolved functions is transferred to the counties. And then we transfer monies to county governments for them to undertake those functions. That way then, we will be doing justice to devolution. Lastly, I don't know when, now I am doing my second term. Perhaps the next time I appear before you, it will be in a different capacity. I said perhaps. So now, Cheriot is likely to be there. he has not expressed a vision beyond where he's sitting, which is fine. He's doing a good job. So really, we must stop this thinking, senators, that the national government has capacity to allocate resources to county governments. Honestly, if we stop thinking that way, then devolution will begin to work. If we stop thinking that the national government can allocate resources to county governments, then we'll begin to get somewhere. The national government is allocated resources just in the same way that county governments are allocated resources. And that's a work of parliament. It has absolutely nothing to do with national government. I will leave it to Sandra Alwale to decide whether I stood because I was asked to stand, or is it because I had something to say. I thank you.
Thank you. Can we give them an applause, both of them? Yeah, I think those were reports, updates for us, and things to carry home from here. So I would not open it for discussion, but what they have done is that they have also started the next session. They have talked of allocation of revenue already before we invite the guest that is going to talk to us about revenue allocation. So I think we are all in the same mood. We really want to start on that. So, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, this topic of fourth basis for revenue allocation is a very important one for us. I remember in the last parliament, it took COVID to control our moods, because once in a while, COVID has to stop us from proceeding. Otherwise, it was, it was not a very easy one. So I would really like to welcome members today to listen very keenly to why the basis and how the basis has been brought here. Because as you are aware, pursuant to Article 216, 1B of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, the Commission on Revenue Allocation is mandated, to underline that, to make recommendations concerning the basis for equitable sharing of revenue raised nationally among the county governments. We did not fail to implement that in the last Senate. We did. Unfortunately, the room was 25 full. And because it was 25% full, it became very difficult when we went to the House, because we started to discuss the things that we would have discussed when the team from the Commission were with us. So again, I plead with us that we listen today. Article 27(1) mandates the Senate then to, once in every 5 years, by resolution, determine the basis for allocating among the counties the share of national revenue that is annually allocated to the county level of government. Article 2017(2) requires that in determining the basis for revenue sharing, the Senate shall consider recommendations from the Commission. So we are here to listen to the Commission, question what the Commission will have brought before us, and then it becomes easier for us. Please, let's make it easier for this Senate compared to the previous one, because there is no COVID. So we might go until morning when we are debating. But the more we understand the basis now, the better for us, colleagues. The Commission on Revenue Allocation did submit to the Senate on the 31st of December 2024 the recommendations on the fourth basis for revenue sharing among county governments for financial years 2025-2026 to exactly 8 He wanted to deliver what he learned and what the committee has learned. So we are thankful, Robert, that you are here ready to also discuss the topic. And again, a listening ear will be useful to us before we go into discussions. That this topic will explore the key components and the anticipated impacts of the proposed fourth basis for revenue sharing, offering insights into how the formula has been developed to enable us to break down the subject matter. The presenter and discussant have been carefully selected. As I said, our chair has been driving this, and we are very happy that he is a former governor, so he wore the shoe before for those who are executing whatever we divided, whatever was shared. So I think we are really in a very privileged position this time. The objectives of the session, therefore, of this topic are: one, to brief honorable senators on the recommendations on the fourth basis for revenue sharing among county governments for the financial years 2025, 2026, and to 2029, 2030. And B is to brief honorable senators on the objectives of the fourth basis for revenue sharing framework. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, from my little experience in this Senate, if we succeed in understanding and in implementing and in executing this mandate, we will succeed in everything else. We'll bring peace to the counties, we'll be fair to the truthfully fair, so that everybody gets a fair of what it is. Devolution in Kenya was meant to do that. It was meant to take resources to the ground, but it must take it fairly. So division of revenue is the most important element of this devolution, which we are enjoying for the 14th, is it 14th? 13, we are only 13 years old. It is expected, therefore, that from this debate, honorable senators will have a better understanding of the recommendations for the basis for revenue sharing framework. I have had a chat with the chair from the commission and the members of the commission, and it is very clear that they are also here to see if there is anything that needs to be improved. So we are in an open forum. It is not cast in stone. We can bring in our own suggestions, and I think that is why we are here. Honorable Speaker and members, I would therefore like to introduce now the presenter of the main paper. We have this morning the chairperson of the Commission on Revenue Allocation and the chairperson of the Standing Committee of Finance. As I said, will be a discussion. Our presenter will be CPA Mary Wanyonyi. Please come forward, Mary, even as I'm describing who you are. Mary is our chairperson of the Commission of Revenue Allocation. CPA Mary Wanyonyi is a certified public accountant, certified professional mediator, and financial analyst with 7 years of experience in the public sector at national and sub-county level. And please welcome. Right there. That's it. An ambitious and diligent professional, she has expert knowledge in the organization and functions of government and is skilled in implementation and monitoring of accounting standards and systems and administering accounting units. Prior to being in CRA as a chairperson, Mrs. Wanyonyi worked with the Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning as a Senior Deputy Accountant General. Previously, she served as the head of department in various ministries. She has also served as a member on the board of Kenyatta National Hospital, Masai Mara University, and Cooperative University, and as the chairperson of the Kenya Ladies Golf Union. Mrs. Wanyonyi is a member of ISPAC, ISIFA, and EWAC. She holds a Master's of Business Administration, a Bachelor of Commerce, that's in accounting, and is a certified professional mediator. May I also introduce our colleague briefly so that you know the credentials behind Senator Ali Roba. Senator Ali Roba is the Senator of Mandera, and we are very grateful that he took a night bus to leave Mandera to come here, because he was in Mandera with the head of state the other day. He was elected in the year 2022. He is the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget. Previously, Senator Captain Ali Roba worked for a multinational company called DAC and Aviation, but before the 2022, he was the governor of Mandera. Roba worked for a multinational company called DAC Aviation International between 2002 and 2012, and has grown through the ranks, starting as a co-pilot in 2002 to the position of the Director of Flight Operations, TF4, in charge of the core business of the company in over 9 countries. He is also the Director of Richland Ventures Africa Limited. He studied at the University of Nairobi for both his undergraduate and postgraduate degrees in the areas of marketing and strategic management, respectively. He is currently pursuing his doctorate degree in business administration at the USIU. Senator Captain Roba was the first governor for Mandera County and served between the year 2013 to 2022. He has also been the chairperson of FCDC, Frontier Counties Development Council, which is the first national economic bloc to be formed by the counties in Kenya in 2014. That brought together 10 counties, including Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, Tana River, Isiolo, Uru, West Pokot, and Turkana since 2017. In his term as governor, he was also elected severally to chair the Arid and Semi-Arid Lands Committee of the Council of Governors. Now you know your colleague, honorable members, and you can learn a tip from him. You're looking at that very broad experience. I would like to invite Senator Robert to come to. Can you give him a clap for being a party leader also? So we have one party leader in the room. Welcome, Senator Roba. I'm suppressing the most important one, but the very important one also is the fact that he was a pilot. Piloting is part of navigating finances in the Senate. It's not that easy. If you were in the last Senate, you would have learned more. Thank you very much. Mary, I'm glad you are a mediator, so you'll do a lot of mediating in the process so that we all understand. So it is now time for me to allocate time as follows. The presenter I'm looking for attention. You are going to do a presentation?
Yes.
That is going to be beamed up?
Yes.
Okay. We are going to allocate you 30 minutes to make your submissions, and the discussion will also have 30 minutes to respond to the presentation and give some perspectives from the Senate committee. And then after that, we will allow members to look at the document. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, may I now invite CPA Mary Wanyonyi to do her presentation.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah.
The Right Honorable Speaker, respective chairs of different committees, the party leader, deputy party leaders, allow me to ride on the established protocols, but as I wait for the presentation to be submitted, if you can indulge me, Professor, to introduce my team as I wait for that. Sorry, I may have skipped some protocols, Majority Leader, but allow me to ride on the established protocols. Could I kindly request my team to stand up and introduce themselves? As the microphone gets to them, I have with me the Vice Chair, the members of our Revenue Allocation Subcommittee of the Commission, and the head of the Directorate in charge of Fiscal Affairs. So they will introduce themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Right Honorable Speaker and all the senators, my name is Koitamet Olekina, Vice Chair, CRA.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Mwasia, Benedict Mwasia Mutiso. I am a member of the Commission on Revenue Allocation, and I also sit in the Revenue Allocation Committee.
All protocols observed. My name is Dr. Isabel Wayaki. I'm a commissioner at the CRA, and I'm also a member of the Revenue Allocation Committee. Thank you.
The Right Honorable Speaker, Honorable Senators, my name is Lynette Oyugi. I'm the Director, Economic Affairs at the Commission on Revenue Allocation. Thank you.
I've not received my laptop back. Oh. I think what is there is, I have it on laptop, but they don't seem to be connected. So, just for clarity, CPA Mary Wanyonyi is also CPA Wanyonyi Chebukati. Just to clear the air, it's one and the same person. Yes, I don't have two husbands, I just have one. Thank you. So I'm here to present. I think what I'll do the presentation, then allow more time for engagement, because I do appreciate the importance and the seriousness of this this topic. So the outline of the presentation, we'll just go through the mandates, review the third basis of revenue sharing. We shall look at the proposal by the stakeholders on the fourth basis, and the framework for the fourth basis, and finally the implementation of the fourth basis. On the mandates, our Honorable Senators, you are aware that Article 216, Sub-Article 1, requires that the Commission on Revenue Allocation makes recommendations concerning the basis for the equitable sharing of revenue that is raised nationally among the county governments, what we call the horizontal sharing. The Commission has submitted the fourth basis to Parliament for consideration. And that was done within constitutional timelines, which is 31st December. Article 217, Sub-Article 1, requires that the Senate, once every 5 years, by resolution, determines the basis for allocating among the counties the share of revenue raised nationally. And Article 217, Sub-Article 4, says within 60 days, the National Assembly should consider the Senate resolution for adoption and amendment. The duration of the fourth basis, it shall be applied from the next financial year, 2025-2026, to the year 2029-2030. And Article 217, Sub-Article 18, provides for a review of the basis within the 5 years. So, I would like us to start by looking and reviewing the implementation of the third basis. So, the third basis had the equitable share of the county governments for the financial year 2020-2021. This remained the same as for the year 2019-2020. We shall look at it as we go along. And secondly, it had an equitable share among county governments for the financial year 2021-2022 to 2024-2025, which is the current financial year. Now, the third basis, this is in the wisdom of Senate, this is how the third basis was allocated. It had what we call an allocation ratio of 50% of the second basis. Allocation to each county for the financial year 2019-20 was retained as part of the third basis. So what are we saying here? That the third basis had two formulas in one. The first half of the allocation for the financial year 2019-2020 was retained in the year 2019-2020, and that figure, the half figure of that year's vertical was 158,250,000,000. The Senate took this figure, half of it, and this was to be retained throughout the formula of the third basis. I will show it to you in a table. And then the balance of the equitable share, that is the remaining 158,250,000,000, this was shared out based on the third formula. So this will come out clearly on this table. If you look at that table, the column on the left, which says second revenue sharing basis, the second revenue sharing basis, the parameters were number one, population, which was for the 2009 year, was at a weight of 45%. Secondly, there was a basic share with a weight of 26%. Thirdly, the poverty, the data that was used then was for 2009 at 18%. And number four, the land area was at 8%, and it was not capped. Not capped means it was taken as the way the percentage was vis-a-vis the country's land, total land area. And then there was number five, a fiscal effort of 2%, and finally number six, a development factor of 1%. So this was the second revenue sharing basis. Now, when the third formula was developed, the third formula now had an index, a health index, or a weight with a weight of 17%. Now you see in the third formula, we have more parameters, and these parameters are what we would call more of the sectoral parameters. Looking at the sectors, the health, the agriculture, the urban services, the land area, okay, and the road index, and then again the issue of the poverty. So the health index then was 17%, agriculture index of the 2019 data 10%, population index of 2019 at 18%, urban services index of 2019 5%, a basic share index of 20%, a land area index capped at 7%. That is, if your land was more than 7%, it was capped to 7%, and the weight then was 8%, a roads index of 8%, and a poverty index of, which was for 2015-16 data, of 14%. So then what I was saying earlier, the third basis picked 50% of the second revenue sharing basis. What does that mean? That the population of 209, please go back, the population of 209, the basic equal share, the poverty of 209, that is the data, the land area which had been uncapped, a fiscal effort, and a development factor. So 50% of this, when the vertical was established in the third formula, was retained. That is where the figure I showed you earlier of 158 billion 250. This was what was retained to be used for the 2021-2022 years up to 2024-25. So all the counties got 50% of, they retained that amount of money throughout up to the current financial year. And then the remaining figure, the remaining formula, if you go back here to the green, now they now applied the formula itself, the third basis formula, where as the revenue increased, the equitable share increased, then the allocation increased. When we go to plenary, that discussion will come out very clearly. Now, when you look at the formula that was used on the third basis, there was a multiple use of population-based measures. Just go back to the green. You will see that when you look at the third revenue sharing basis, health index relied on population data. Agriculture, it is more of the rural homes. The urban services, the basic share, the land area, and the roads index. Next slide, please. So if you look at the population index, it's all about the number of people. The health index, it's again about the number of people, because it's the inpatients and the number of inpatients and the number of outpatient visits in a county. Agriculture index, it's all about the rural households. The road index, it's about population not accessing a motorable road within 2 kilometers. Again, population. The poverty index is again about the number of poor people. And the urban index is about urban households. And the basic share index is about 1%, which is was based on an inverse, again, of the county population. The other one, on the issue of the critique and the review of the third formula, was that it failed to fully align resource sharing to functional assignment. So let's see what the proposals were by the stakeholders on the fourth basis, because we engaged widely. We engaged with county governments. First, we engaged them as regional blocks. Then we engaged them on an individual county basis. We engaged Parliament, including our committee, the Committee of Senate Finance Committee. We engaged also the National Assembly. and the National Treasury and other stakeholders. So in that engagement, we got feedback on a lot. There was a lot of feedback that we received. We received proposals from that engagement where there was a feeling that we should have additional parameters. And the parameters that we were being requested us to consider, one was the blue economy. Secondly, the economic growth. Thirdly, water and sanitation. We were asked to consider the fiscal effort, again, which the Senate had not considered this in the last formula. The fiscal prudence. Next slide. In the engagement, there was also discussion on whether we can have affirmative action in favor of small counties. And there was something on environment performance index. There was proposals that we consider security and disaster management, infrastructure needs, and finally, early childhood development, disease prevalence, afforestation, number of farmers, and the cost of urban service, among others. So this is what feedback we received when we engaged the stakeholders. And next slide. So our response on the feedback was as follows: that on the proposal of the incentive for economic output, that we had already considered a parameter on the gross county product per capita. So that was incorporated in the fourth basis, the draft fourth basis. On the proposal that we include blue economy as a parameter, we found no data specific for the blue economy activities for counties. On the water and sanitation, I think, as you are all aware, honorable senators, there's actually no data on water scarcity per county. So it was not possible to consider that parameter. On the fiscal effort, the Muluya and me might say physical, but it's fiscal effort. The two parameters had not been considered. This was informed by the Senate's decision. In the third formula, or the third basis, there was a proposal for fiscal effort at 2% and fiscal prudence at 2%. However, these two parameters were not considered by Senate, and the Senate, in the third formula, in its decision, rejected the two parameters. And now in the draft fourth basis, what we have incorporated is an affirmative action. We did not consider that because Senate had already rejected it in the third basis. On the parameter of affirmative action, yes, that has been considered. In the draft fourth basis, we incorporate the affirmative action to cushion small counties and also ensure that no county will get less allocation in subsequent years during the implementation of the basis. Next slide. On the proposal to have an environment performance index, the parameter was not considered because, again, there's no data on environment performance per county. Number 8, on the proposal of security, the Commission did not consider this because national security is a function of the national government. On the infrastructure needs, again, we did not consider this. On the ECD, disease prevalence, afforestation, number of farmers, and cost of urban service, the framework that the Commission has prepared has moved away from the sectoral approach. The sectoral approach is what I showed you, where you have health, you have agriculture, you have roads. We have moved out of that approach. So all functions are therefore catered for within our overall framework. Number 11, proposal for disaster management. The Public Finance Management Act provides for the establishment of an emergency fund by county governments. So we did not consider that as a parameter. So what is the framework of the fourth basis? Next slide. The fourth basis was guided by Article 203. The criteria in Article 203, which clearly says the need to ensure that county governments are able to perform the functions allocated to them. Secondly, the fiscal capacity and efficiency of county governments. Thirdly, development and other needs of counties. Number 4, economic disparities within and among counties and the need to remedy them. Number 5, the need for affirmative action in respect of disadvantaged areas and groups. Number 6, the need for economic optimization of each county and to provide incentives for each county to optimize its capacity to raise revenue. And number 7, the desirability of stable and predictable allocations of revenue. So what was the objectives of this fourth revenue sharing basis? Our first objective is to ensure that the revenues are equitably shared out to facilitate service delivery. That was our first basic objective. And this we draw from the fourth schedule of Article 187 of the Constitution. Again, Article 203, Sub-Article 1D, the criteria for revenue sharing should provide adequate revenues to ensure that county governments are able to perform functions that have been assigned to them. That was our first objective. Our second objective was to share revenue equitably, to address economic disparities, and promote development. Again, we draw this from Article 203, which provides for economic optimization, consideration of development and other needs of counties, the need to address economic disparities, consideration of affirmative action for disadvantaged areas. I can see Majority Leader is very busy talking because, you know, these are things that are in his head, the Constitution. So I'm glad that this is something you really understand, that we had to consider Article 203 when we are developing this formula. And as we proceed, you will see that Article 203 was considered. Now, we had a choice of parameters. Why did we choose these parameters? It is because of the availability of data. The sectoral data, sectoral parameters that you saw earlier are data that is generated by the MDAs. This is data that the counties collect, and after they collect the data, they forward it to the MDAs, and the MDAs share the data. The question is, how reliable is that data? Is that data credible? Is it statistically sound? We will see. Next slide. Why are we doubting or finding it difficult to use sector data? If you look at this, this is data for Rural Access Index. So if we look at the two columns, you will see one column is headed stable data, the other one unstable data. Now this RAI is what is the Roads Access Index, an index that was used in the previous formulas. If you look at the Road Access Index of 2017, we have two data sets. We are trying to show you what these are counties, from number 1 to 9, this is data from actual counties. It's just that we have not projected which county, because this data is not produced or generated by them. It is generated by the respective MDAs to the roads board. So when you look at stable, we are trying to demonstrate, if you look at the first column, which shows that the road access index in 2017, for the first county, the first serial number was 362,308 people who could access a motorable road. That is what RAI says. In the RAI of 2023, the figure is 348,795. Why do we say that is stable? It makes sense that if 362,308 in 2017 were able to access roads, then we expect if a few more roads have been developed, then the number should go down. So if you look at number 2, again, 246,675 could access motorable roads, because that's how the RAI index defines the index. Then a bit smaller number of 212, at least there was improvement. So we are saying if roads were developed, then there should be less people, people who are accessing motorable roads. No, the RAI is the number of people who can access roads. Yeah, it's the other way around. Thank you. Sorry, it's the other way around. I see you're all awake. Thank you very much. Now, when we talk of unstable data, it's the reverse. Look at number 1, 200,257. And now we have a figure of 582,416. So what happened? Maybe, we don't know. It could be migration. Yeah. Yes, these are specific counties. These are existing counties. Now it is the roads board. Yes, the data is from the roads board. It's not our data. And that's why we are saying this data is not stable. So we could not rely on it. Let's go to the next slide. Now, on this slide, we are saying there's variation on the health data. Look at county number 1. Number 1 does not mean 001. It just means serially 1 from the ones we selected. Again, the inpatient occupied bed days in 2019 was 113,772. In 2023, this occupancy of inpatient went down to 13,657. The question is, which one could have been the correct one? Is it the 13,657 or is it the 113,772? They are different years. Now, we are aware that NHIF, we have issues currently with NHIF trying to pay bills, and some of them they are doubting whether those bills are payable. Maybe this could have contributed, because if you had 130, okay, look at number 3, that there were 425,546 inpatient occupied beds in 2019. This figure has drastically gone down to 29,203. Maybe it was COVID. We don't know. We don't know. I think these are issues we need to discuss and really agree. Would we want to rely on such data? So the data is not reliable, it's not stable, it's not sound statistically. And remember, this is data that is generated by the counties to the MDAs then the MDAs release it. So we do not know. So we found it very difficult to rely on sectoral data. Next slide, please. So here we are simply saying that it was now a concern. That's the instability in the sectoral data, which is collected by MDAs. And we are also cognizant of Article 2031 that requires that the criteria for revenue sharing to remain stable and predictable. How stable and predictable is that data we have seen? Number 3, the Commission has therefore considered the following parameters for the fourth basis. We have considered population. Why? Because a county's proportion of population, we have picked it based on the Kenya Population and Housing Census. That is the Kenya National Bureau Statistics, Volume 1 of 2019 document. We felt a bit safer relying on that data. As to whether it is 100% reliable, at least it has come from an authority whose work is to generate data. So our first parameter is population. We have considered what we call the basic equal share. And an equal share allocation to each county to finance common functions is because functions are similar across all counties, irrespective of the size of their population and geographical size of a county. One governor, one deputy governor, and all other directorates which are part of a county. And again, this parameter cushions the small counties, because the small counties, if they get the basic share, if you were just to go by population, then they would not even get sufficient money to meet their basic costs. We have considered the geographical size of the county as a parameter. A county's proportion of the geographical size, but we have capped it at 10%, again based on the data that is provided in the Kenya Population and Housing Census of the 2019 Kenya National Bureau and Statistics data. Again, we have relied on KNBS. Poverty is another parameter. We feel it is also important to consider it. There may be an argument, are we rewarding poverty? No, there are some areas that are still suffering poverty. This one is a county's proportion of the number of poor people as provided in the Kenya Poverty Report of 2022, which is developed by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. We have another parameter known as the income distance. This is the distance of other counties' gross county product per capita from the county with the highest gross county product per capita, based on the data by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics for the financial years 2020, 2021, 2022. We took an average of those 3 years. The county with the highest income per capita, in this case it would be Nairobi, is assigned the distance of the next highest county. We shall see that come out if it is not clear. So, the implementation of the fourth basis. No, sorry, I need to show you the parameters that, the percentages that we have allocated, the weights. So, we had earlier indicated that we have two objectives, and one is to share revenues equitably to facilitate service delivery. The parameters that guide that is population, equal share, and geographical size. On population, we have a weight of 42%, equal share 22%, geographical size 9%. Under the second objective, to share revenues equitably to address economic disparities and promote development, we have the parameter of poverty at a weight of 14% and income distance at 13%, giving a total of 100%. Now, In implementation of the fourth basis, we have established what we are calling a stabilization factor. This is inbuilt in the formula. This is to ensure that no county gets less than what they were allocated in the previous year, which is this year of 2024-2025. You will see later that no county gets less than what they were allocated in the year 2024-2025 because of the stabilization factor. No county loses. No county. So why is it important to stabilize revenue? This is to ensure the revenue that every county program and project continues without disruption that may be occasioned by sudden budget cuts arising from the change of revenue sharing framework. If you had a salary of 100,000 shillings and you had already planned your programs and projects, it would be grossly unfair if your salary went down. Then you would not be able to meet your objectives. So it's very important that that stabilization factor has been introduced in the fourth basis. And this was actually guided by the Senate in the last formula. When the Senate chose to share out to the formula, the third basis, they took the allocation of the second revenue sharing, the allocation, the third basis, and because they did not want any county to lose or to get less than what they had got in the year 2019-2020, Senate in their wisdom had two formulas in one. They had the second revenue sharing formula at 50%, as I had shown, and then the balance was kept on increasing as the equitable share kept on increasing. So we applied the same. We ensured that no county should get less than what they got in the previous year for that exact reason. Next slide. So, what was the outcome of that formula? The fourth basis. This is a simulation done at 417 billion 425. We are aware the current formula, the current allocation for 24-25 is 378. It is 387, sorry. It is 387 billion. Now, in our recommendation for what we call the vertical recommendation, the sharing between the national government and the county governments, before now we share out that allocation to the counties, we have recommended an additional 30 billion from the 387 billion to 425 billion. Why 30 billion? Because, and we've had engagement with National Treasury. National Treasury is proposing 405 billion. We are proposing 417 billion. But in our proposal in the 30 billion, we require 12.1 billion to apply that stabilization factor I'm talking about. The holding harmless. Holding harmless means when we ran the formula and counties appeared to be losing, the stabilization factor returned the counties back to the allocation of 2024-2025, and then we now applied the fourth basis formula. So what was the outcome? The outcome is that table. I believe if you don't have it, we shall engage with it. So that meant, if I can give an example of Baringo, Baringo's allocation for 2024-2025 is 6,684,000,000. Following the fourth basis allocation index, after stabilizing the counties, the allocation is 7,185 million, or 7,185,000,000. That will be the allocation for 2025-2026. And of course, going forward, as the vertical increases, this figure will continue increasing. As I had said earlier, no county loses, because we hold, where the county appeared to be losing, we hold you harmless. So we restore you with the stabilization factor back to zero. And to do that, we needed an additional of only 12.1 billion. National Treasury, worst case scenario, if the allocation is taken at that level, is recommending a vertical of 405 billion. So if National Treasury is recommending 405 billion, that is an additional 18 billion from the current allocation. What does that mean? That when we hold you harmless, you are covered. The 12 billion is covered in the 18 billion, and there's still a surplus. But our recommendation is 417 billion 425. Why? Because we know counties have non-discretionary expenses. We know that counties are partnering with the national government on different projects. I think majority is very aware of the KIPES. The counties have to give their counterpart funding of 250 million. The counties, following the housing levy, are required as an employer to give their share. There's a community health promoters, which again is a national project counterfunded by the counties. So we considered all those factors. We considered some element of inflation. And again, we considered the fiscal space that the country is currently undergoing. And that is how we recommended 417,425. So if you now simulate the figure of 417,425, you will find a table where each county is getting the allocation, which clearly is more than what they are getting in the current financial year. Session Chair, please guide. No, I'm just asking her to guide me, because I'm getting a lot of... Okay, it's okay. Yeah.
Do you have a simulation of the current 387 so that we can be able to get a comparative? Because what we are having is the...
Yes, it is the allocation of 24-25, column 1, 2, 3.
No, I'm saying that one is on that basis.
Or you want a simulation of the 38?
The fourth basis on the 387.
Yes,
because that is
we can come up with that one.
That is the only way.
The one that shows counties were losing, yes, and have now been stabilized.
No, before stabilization.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. You want that one.
If you
we can generate, we have the table, if the session chair will allow.
Yeah, let's allow, yeah. Excuse me, one of my students is also trying to help me. Let's allow questions. Yeah, you actually wanted a simulation with to be introduced. Your team can be introducing that simulation because it will be very important during discussion. Yeah, but let's allow her to finish because we have the committee comments which are going to come up next. Thank you.
Professor, I have finished. Yes.
Honorable members, she has just finished her presentation. Can we give her another big hand, please? Now I invite Senator Roba to tell us the comments of the committee and how far they went. Please come here, Roba. Senator Roba, I had already introduced you, so you please come straight to the podium.
Thank you very much. May I have your attention, honorable senators and team? Pastor Wambua, order.
Members, please take your seats. We are now at the crucial point when we should listen to what our committees concluded after this presentation. Then we can start our own comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, honorable senators. From the onset, it's extremely important to share some very serious information. The fact that the formula, the proposed formula, was submitted to the Senate within the recess. As such, the committee has not processed the formula. So the committee is not sharing any position on the formula. Number two, knowing how emotive the issue of the formula is, even when I was called up as a discussant, I did not prepare to come and give input other than issues of generalities. Number three, the Senate under Article 217 is mandated to come up with the final formula. CRA is mandated to give a proposal to the Senate. And understanding how controversial the third formula was, and at that time I sat in a very uncomfortable position of serving as a governor of Mandera County, and I had a lot of cartoons drawn about me and the Senate at that point. I just want to put Nimona a little bit of discomfort already on the basis of the presentation. I want to tell the Senate of the Republic of Kenya that the committee, should the majority leader decide to maintain or retain me as the chair of that committee, because there are some changes coming up, which should happen. But what I mean, the committee is going to really make sure that we will do a very good job and consult with you on the basis of three issues, because experience comes in extremely handy. Despite the fact that, Article 216 and Article 217 and Article 203 has given some guidelines. From practical discussion, it does not mean that then CRA should really alter the formula so drastically that understanding it becomes extremely difficult, even for the senators who are mandated to come up with a formula. But they are mandated to give a proposal, and the proposal is going to be subjected to a new layer of stakeholder engagement. And because of the controversy that preceded in the previous formula, we will have a number of informal sessions with the committee. The basic principle on the formula, as I stand here, and that is my personal opinion, and it's important to qualify that as my personal opinion, not as the chair of Senate Standing Committee on Finance and Budget, because we've not processed. And any position I take will be the position of the committee as they recommend the final recommendation to the Senate. And because for the 2.5 years, we've gotten a lot of support from the Senate in terms of what the committee has processed, it is not our intention to start with controversy in terms of the work of the committee. But let me just say the principle, the basic principle that as we have engaged, various entities in CARA, DORA, and county additional allocation, what has come out extremely clearly is that first, with increase in shareable revenue, there must be marginal increase for all counties. Number two, and it's my personal opinion, the holding harmless issue is a controversy in itself, and we really need to find a smoother way to navigate. For example, let me put it in the most simple way to analyze. If we have shared 387.425 in the current financial year, and the numbers are what they are, and that shareable revenue moves from 387.425 and moves to 417, then the natural expectation is that whatever formula we propose, there must be marginal increase compared between the difference of 387.425 and 417. There must be considerable marginal increase for all the 47 counties, which is a very simple, position that we really need to look at. And then number three, the counties are they are devolved functions that are very basic. And there are 5 counties that are affected very severely. And we've interacted, over the last 2 years, and we see the difficulty, and it has come to light. Counties of Isiolo, Lamu, Nyamira, Nyandarua, and Tharaka Nithi have some challenge, very serious challenge, because between me and my colleague and my boss, the Speaker, we've been governors, and I also have seen my colleague, my former colleague and best friend at Agement, Singishu, former governor. The basic functions of devolution, like for example, if you have, for the counties to work, you need to have 10 CECs. And because you are not in isolation, you don't exist in vacuum, you are going to perform your functions and expected to fairly do okay in comparison to other counties that also do the same functions, basically. Meaning, if there are departments within a ministry, basically, it's not you, but because you will do in comparison to other counties and will be interacting with those counties, then the department must also exist in certain basic number. And if it comes to health performance, it's the same. And as such, there are certain basic, costs that all the 47 counties will be incurring, that also we need to make sure whether a county is small or big, that all these counties are able to perform those functions. I couldn't agree more. Those are the, the basics in terms of that, because as the CRA chair got into simulating issues of income distance, the rest were very clear. When it came to issues of income distance, the parameters severely changed. And the fact that CRA is mandated does not mean you really need to alter the formula so gravely that it puts us in a spin in terms of how we deal with this issue. The service delivery is a factor of population as well as geographical land size. But I couldn't agree more on the issue of capping, because maybe some counties are extreme outlier in terms of the size, geographical size. It's probably 20-fold for some of the counties. The other issue I need to reflect on, it's a very difficult issue. I went to Sweden in 2015 with the Council of Governors. What I came back home with is that they have data on everything. If you stand there, and we were seated, we were testing the population of the number of people using a walkway adjacent to this street, they'll give you. They have done analysis. Now, we do not have reliable data. And even worse is that Kenya National Bureau of Statistics allowed itself to be used as a tool And for example, by the previous administration, directly in determining without using the actual collection of population census, just to be able to get a certain outcome that were politically correct in view of the state. And we have a court ruling recently on that issue, which is very sad, where counties have realized negative population growth unjustifiably. Now, with that in mind, and what the CRHA has said in terms of other parameters that could have been introduced, but there is no scientific data, unchallenged scientific data, collected by an independent entity that is supposed to be doing that. For example, there is no reason why Kenya National Bureau of Statistics should not be physically present collecting all the necessary data required in the 47 counties in this country, and why they should not be resourced properly to make sure that we can generate reliable information and use that information for purpose of planning for this country. So, while I'm a discussant in this program, I sit in a very unfortunate position as being the chair of the committee that is going to work on behalf of the Senate to be able to recommend, after having done a lot of engagement with all the stakeholders. So it's impossible for me to give you a position, you know, soon, God willing, subject to the decision you are going to make very soon. Yeah, so it puts me in an awkward position because I have ideas of my own, but it's not possible